the neonatal nurse Lucy Letby has been found guilty of murdering 7 premature babies. The 10-month-long trial has concluded. We'll see what sentencing comes next. More than 100 hours of deliberation. The jury at Manchester Crown Court also convicted Lucy Letby of 7 counts of attempted murder whilst working at the Countess of Chester Hospital. Jurors did clear her of 2 other counts of attempted murder and failed to reach a verdict on 6 of the charges. You'll also hear throughout the afternoon some of the accounts of parents of what they feared and felt about Lucy Letby before this all came to light. And one of the things that emerges from their accounts is their sense that they couldn't speak up about their gut instinct, that there was something amiss with her behaviour. And we've spoken a lot on this programme about that, about how when we engage with institutions like the NHS, not only the NHS, that we don't feel that we have a voice. And I think there are going to be many, many lessons, very tragic lessons in this case. And clearly there are massive questions to be asked of the hospital, given that it wasn't just a case of parents having concerns. Doctors involved in the team raised concerns about this nurse. And it does beg a belief when you see the scale of the killing that she was free to then carry out. It does, seems to me, to beg a belief that if an allegation that serious is brought, even if it's brought wrongfully against the best nurse in the world, surely for the safety of patients you remove while an investigation takes place. And that is clearly not what happened in the case of Lucy Letby. There's a lot more to flow from this case, possibly extra cases, but also a very big national conversation, I think, about how complaints are handled on the ground in hospitals, how they're handled when relatives raise them, how they're handled when colleagues raise questions about one another. This is all stuff that during Jeremy Hunt's tenure as Health Secretary, we were supposed to be improving upon. If you work in the Health Service, I would be really keen to hear from you about that duty of candour, that duty to report, that these new, better, flexible, open, non-blame related systems that are supposed to exist and be developed and be being developed in the NHS, where you, about a colleague, can raise your hand and raise your concerns in a safe way. How does your reality square with that ambition? Is that possible? And LBC has spoken to the parents of twin boys known to the court during the trial as L and M. Now, before you hear their accounts of their experiences, again, just to reiterate that these are very difficult things to listen to. So if you feel you don't want to, or feel there's somebody in the room who might not need to, then, you make your decisions. I'm just warning you about some of the content. These babies, L and M as they were known, were born healthy, but premature, needing support, and left in Letby's care. Their parents told us of how their joy at becoming a family for the first time suddenly turned to horror as their baby boys collapsed. Lucy Letby had attempted to kill them by injecting insulin and air into them. One was left with permanent brain damage. Their words have been spoken by actors to protect the family's identity.
A nurse is coming charging upstairs saying, "You need to come back down." And I was there first because my wife was still in bed. I was the first one into the unit at that time. And the image that I saw was just horrendous. That image I'll never forget because it's on the brain.
He was just crying. And I said, "Oh my God, what happened?" And the doctor was giving compressions to baby M. One of the nurses, Mary Griffith, said to me, I've not done anything. And Lucy was behind her. And I was just praying to God, saying, what has happened to my child? I've not done anything wrong in my life to anybody, so why do I have to suffer?
I mean, it's clear that some of the questions that will be raised, not least what Tom was talking about at the very beginning there, Lucy Letby's absence at the final count of the verdicts today. She was present for some of those early announcements, but that we couldn't report on those. Will she be present on Monday when she is sentenced? I mean, she's clearly going to prison for a very long time, guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder several more babies. There's that. There's the question of how, when the alarm is raised by a member of staff or a parent, how is it handled? And it looks to have been handled appallingly badly by the Countess of Chester Hospital. Dr. Stephen Breary, who was the lead consultant in the unit. So, we have already heard, and we will hear more. You will hear more from parents who had a bad feeling about her, having been exposed to her company for a long time while they were visiting their own children in the neonatal unit. But it wasn't just, you can almost, it's wrong, it shouldn't happen, but you can almost understand a scenario or expect a scenario where a parent is ignored. But when the lead consultant on the unit, Dr. Stephen Breary, raised concerns, not just that her performance was a bit off, or he had questions about her character, or whether she should be working in this department, actual explicit suggestions that she might be trying to kill the babies, and she wasn't taken off duty. He raised it first in 2015, and in 2016 he demanded that she be taken off duty. That was after the final 2 murders. The hospital management initially refused to do that. They also demanded that the doctor, the senior lead consultant in the unit, write an apology letter to Letby and told them to stop making allegations against her, this is going to be appalling for the Countess of Chester Hospital when the dust settles on all of this. 2 consultants, senior doctors, were ordered to attend mediation with Letby, come and mediate with a murderer, even though they suspected and had said so that she was killing babies. When she was finally moved, Letby was assigned to the Risk and Patient Safety Office, where she still had access to sensitive documents from the unit, the neonatal unit, and was in close proximity to senior managers whose job it was to investigate her. And it goes on. I'll read more about these, the massive red flags that were missed or ignored. Worth saying as well that 2 babies also died while Letby was working at Liverpool Women's Hospital in an earlier role. So more details will be emerging throughout the afternoon. We'll bring them to you here on LBC. And I'm very keen to speak to you, either if you are a staff member in any health setting, really, in hospitals in particular. How difficult is it to be heard when you say, I don't think this person is fit to be a nurse or a doctor or a healthcare assistant or a porter or whatever? How difficult is it? And there have been other cases recently, the porter that was interfering with dead bodies, where too much freedom was given to individuals. And that protective hierarchy that's supposed to exist in hospitals clearly fell apart at various points in the chain and can't afford to. And I think the patient, clearly little babies won't have their own voices, but the relatives and the patient's voices have to be given greater space. And, in every hospital you've ever been in, you'll see the number for PALS, Patient Liaison Service. With all due respect to those who work in it and try their very best, I'm sure it's neither use nor ornament when it comes to being heard. I've got direct experience of this in hospitals, and we have to get better at hearing one another. And think of the phone-in we did the other day about your experiences of not being listened to during the delivery of your baby or during your pregnancy. It's just hormonal, which is what one set of parents in this case felt they would be told if they said, we really are uncomfortable about this nurse. But they were uncomfortable about Lucy Letby, and they were all right. Worth saying that the police have said they will continue to investigate other deaths in previous places that Lucy Letby has worked, including at the very large hospital, the Liverpool Women's Hospital. She's 33 years old, originally from Hereford. She, as you heard there, denied all the charges in our earlier report. She and the prosecution lawyers, defence lawyers, blamed the deaths on hospital hygiene and staffing levels, that the system was weak and that the hospital authorities wanted a scapegoat for it. That was disproved during the trial. She'll be sentenced on Monday morning in Manchester. And as we heard from Tom Dunn, LBC's Tom Dunn earlier on, she wasn't present today when those verdicts were delivered. earlier on, intermittent verdicts had been delivered without with reporting restrictions on them, which is why you and I haven't been hearing about them. And she was tearful when they were announced in the court. But today she wasn't present in the court, and we'll see whether, like a number of other high-profile cases we've seen recently, where the convicted person fails to turn up true coward style on their sentencing as well. We'll find out that on Monday.